This little teapot features a couple of happy birds and their little birdhouse. And there's a lot of French knots on this one. And I even used some French knots to make these little notes. So I wanted to mimic these little cherries, and this little guy's turned them into a little song. Most of the stitching is just a stem stitch. Then, like I said, the French dots for the dots. And I did do a back stitch for this little line just because it's so small. And then these leaves are fishbone stitch. Now, on this other sample way, I'm using just one color of thread, and I'll show you the fishbone stitch, or actually on this one I didn't use fishbone. I used the fan leaf stitch. So I have shown the fishbone stitch many times before, so it will be on previous videos if you're not sure how to do it. Now on the fan stitch, what I did is I had to think for a second. I started at the top of the leaf, and then I'm just going to bring my needle down at the base of the leaf and then come up on one side of that initial stitch. And on a fishbone stitch, I would cross like that. Now on a fan, I'm just going to bring it right back in that same hole at the base and then come up on the other side, same hole at the base. So you're forming a fan, and it just makes a nice kind of bulky stitch. It gives it some depth, and it's kind of like a satin stitch, but a lot easier because you're not going to have to be quite as careful about your threads being right next to each other. So fan stitch leaves, super, super easy, and a nice way to really make a nice chunky leaf like that. So the other stitch that we have are the French knots. So I'm just going to show you one right here. We're going to wrap our thread 3 times. 1, 2, 3. You hold it in place with your finger, and then you're going to put your needle down right next to where you brought it up. Slide those loops down to the fabric, hold it in place, and then pull your needle through. Now these little stems from the berry to the branch are just a straight stitch like that, just one stitch. They're a little too short, and I wanted to do it with stem stitch, and I wanted it to be thinner than a stem stitch. So like this could also just be a straight stitch because it is so short, just like that. So on these ones that were on the bird notes, I did the French knot, and then instead of bringing the line down towards the center of the dot, I did it on the outside so it looks more like a note. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I think that's about it on this one, actually. It's pretty simple. But you can see there's quite a bit of difference between even though they're both just using one color, just being able to color in just a little bit. So if you're not feeling real comfortable using colored pencils, this might be one where you want to give it a try because there's no shading and it's very little coloring in. But it does make more of a statement. Or you can just stick with the basics and just do one color of thread and keep it very, very simple like that. And the other thing I wanted to point out too, real quick, is those are not French knots in the eyes. It's just a straight little tiny stitch. I did do that on this one because it needed it. On this one, since it was colored in blue, you really couldn't tell if it was there or not. So these little guys don't have eyes, but you could add them. It's up to you. And there we have it. So I'm going to finish this guy up, and we will see you next month. Bye.